Before we start this lesson called the blame game, I want to talk a little bit about a buddy, a friend, a mentor, a person who really has taught me a lot. And his name is Josephson. I want to tell you a little bit about Josh, and then we'll get into the main lesson on the blame game. Josh was born a couple of thousand years ago, and he was a teacher. And he taught some remarkable things that were totally different than what anybody was thinking about. And he had several thousands of people would come to hear him speak. He really was very popular in his homeland. But it only wound up that there was several hundred of them that really got it and really understood what Josh was talking about and how to live your life. He was talking about a way to change the way you think so you could manifest whatever you want in your life and have a joyful life. And this is all he taught. Well, Josh had a very short teaching career because the fundamental religionists of his time were very upset because he was teaching things that were against what they thought. And they conspired. He lived in a country that was occupied by another country, and they were limited. They couldn't even execute anybody for a crime. They had to take them to the occupiers to have somebody executed. And so these religious leaders conspired with the people who had invaded their country and was running it, and to have this man executed because they were so petrified about what he had to say and what he was teaching the people. After Josh was executed, there was a small group, maybe several hundred of people who had been with him, and they began to say, look, even though he's gone, we're going to live what he said. And they were called followers of the way. Or sometimes they were called followers of the way of Josh, but they were called followers of the way. And they banded together and they began to talk about it. They began to actually live the way he had instructed. Well, it was so great and so different than the way people were living at the time that other people joined them. And they were really beginning to grow in this little country. But the occupying forces were very upset because they didn't like anything that they didn't have control over. So they sent spies, and there was one spy named Saul, whose job it was to infiltrate, find out where these followers of the way were, and then to let the occupying forces know, and they would go round them up and kill them. And this particular guy, this Saul, was a very intelligent man. He spoke several languages. He came from a country other than the occupiers, but he was a citizen of the occupiers' country. Finally, after a while, because he saw so many of these people, he really began to get it that this was a special way of living. And all of a sudden, he had what I call a BFO, blinding flash of the obvious. He decided he was on the wrong side. And he went and joined these followers of the way. And they were a little suspicious of him at first, but they brought him in. And this particular guy, Saul, was very smart, very charismatic, and he never met Josh, but he heard what the other people said and began to get his own take on what Josh had said. And there was some friction between the two central leaders. One was a woman by the name of Mary, and the other was a man by the name of Simon, and they were the two leaders. Well, this fellow who was more educated than both of them and so charismatic, he began to become a leader, even though he wasn't one of the original followers of John. And finally, they kind of sent him off to other countries to recruit, and he did. He was a fabulous recruiter. He went all over the place and recruited thousands and thousands of people into this followers of the way. Now, for a long time, they were called followers of the way, but after about 40 or 50 years, they changed their name. And they should have changed their name to Paulians, because this fellow, who was Saul, actually did change his name to Paul. The people who wrote about Josh were all Greeks, and they wrote in Greece. Now, Josh's name was Yeshua ben Yosef. That was Josh's actual name. But they translated Yeshua into Greek as Jesus. And eventually, that was translated into English as Jesus. And a couple of other things happened. No one back then ever called Jesus Christ, because there, at that time, English didn't exist. English wasn't invented for another 500 years. So they call him Jesus, and later, 500 years or so later, it was changed to Jesus. Well, things went along pretty well, and there was some fighting among these groups. The Saul, who now is called Paul, and Simon, who is now called Peter, and Mary. So really, what we now call Christianity was started by Peter, Paul, and Mary. They were the leaders. That's just the way it is, folks. But what happened in that early time and then later, for about 300 years, is that this group's teachings was morphed and changed and changed and changed to the point now where it's almost impossible to pull out, although you can with a lot of work, pull out what Josh was actually teaching. They added in all their own stuff. In about the year 325, they added in December 21st to celebrate the birthday of Josh, then called Jesus. However, that was the birthday of another god that was very popular, who, by the way, had a virgin mother and who was executed. And there were so many parallels in that religion of that other person that they sort of just morphed it in and made it part of this, what was originally the followers of the way, and it became what we now know as Christianity. The reason I'm telling you that story is this. I'm going to use the term Josh when I quote this man, so that we don't get him confused with the religious person. Now, I'm a minister, but I have to tell you that the word religion comes from the word tie back. It means to tie back. And the object behind it is that religion is supposed to tie people back to God, because somehow they got loose. That's the lie. We were never separated. We were never sinners. We were never any of those things that religion in general has claimed that we were. And so religion spends all of its time trying to get us back to God, and we never last. What I would like for you to do is to remember that connection, because it was always there. You knew it when you were a baby, and you will know it again when you start to pull away some of the beliefs that have just literally crippled our thinking. So that's the reason for Josh, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. That's the typical position, that's the typical description or picture of what we normally think is Jesus. Blue eyes, shoulder-length hair, and a long beard. There's a place where Paul says in the Bible, if a man wears long hair, he's like a sissy, in other words. No person would have ever worn long hair, and they would not have had blue eyes. This is probably more what he probably looked like. This is obviously a Jewish fellow with dark eyes and dark hair. That's the Semitic people who lived there. That's what they looked like. None of them had blue eyes. They would have thought you were a freak if you had blue eyes. So I say all this to get to you the idea that let's think about what the actual teachings were and forget about all of the religious trappings that have been added on year after year after year, religion after religion, each one splitting. There are over 550 Protestant religions in the United States, all separated by their separate beliefs in one God. Doesn't sound logical. This is something that Josh said, and I substituted the word Josh in there. Also, I've used the term Father's realm. That is, according to the scholars who wrote this particular translation, much more like, because we don't know what a kingdom is. It's the Father's realm. So I'll read it that way. Josh said, if your leaders say to you, look, the Father's realm is in the sky, then the birds will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the Father's realm is within you and outside you. When you know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will understand that you are children of a living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are poverty. If you do not know yourselves, that's the key. That's the central point. And that's what the things we've been teaching so far and the things we will teach is to get you to know who you are. not just consciously, but also subconsciously. Let you know all the things that are part of you. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. You might think so, but there's nothing wrong with any of it. But there is something wrong when you don't know it's there and it's sabotaging you. Then he said this. When he was asked when the Father's realm will come, he said this: "It will not come by watching for it. It will not be said, look there or look here. Rather, the Father's realm is spread upon the earth, and people don't see it. It is here, it is now, it's right now, and yet we're wearing subconscious blinders that don't let us see it. And we're having experiences that are not the best experiences we could have." The next concept that I want to give you a little bit of an idea about is this idea of evil. This is another one that's been just debilitating to us. Let's take a look at that word evil. I'm going to spell it forwards and backwards, and notice a funny little thing about that. Evil is live spelled backwards. And the only thing that is, quote, evil is anything that takes away from life is evil. Anything that takes away from life. It's not a set of standards. It's not a set of rules or commandments or anything like that. That's not how you distinguish it. If you take a look at the 10 Commandments, if you had nothing but love in your heart, you could throw them away. Because they're all based on the idea, they're like training wheels on a bike, to get you to be a way that we don't seem to be naturally, although we are that way naturally. We are that way. So if you come from love, you're always going to do the right thing. You won't have a list of rules to find out whether you are or whether you aren't. Now, good and evil are mixed together. Can everybody see the good up there? Can anybody see the evil? Okay, it's embedded in there. And they are. They're a yin and yang. They're in everything. Nothing, as Shakespeare said, is evil, but thinking makes it so. And for that matter, nothing is good, but thinking makes it so. Good and evil are man-made ideas. God sees none of it whatsoever. None of it. Something else that Josh said. Then he called the crowd together again and said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile." Now, I want to change the word defile because then we get a little uptight about we're bad and good. I want to change it to this: mess up. And I want to read it again so you understand the meaning behind it. I'm just going to read the last part. There is nothing outside a person that by going in can mess up, but the things that come out are what mess up. There is no event out here that's challenging you and that's in front of you that you didn't create. It's what came out of you. It's what you drew into your experience. And if you don't like it, the object is to change what's on the inside, not what's on the outside. None of you watching a movie and saw something better in the movie would go up and try to erase the movie, would you? You change the film and the camera. That's the way you change it. I think we had a slide about that. Nothing outside you can hurt you. Your entire experience is created inside you, either consciously and unfortunately unconsciously. And it's the unconscious where we have the problem. Because we say, I would have never done that to myself. Consciously, you never would have done that to yourself. So it behooves us to become conscious of the stuff that's in us. And the very best way to tell what's in you is to look outside and see what's going on. You have lots of conflict in your life, there's conflict in here. You have lots of peace and love, there's peace and love in here. So let's talk then about the blame game. There was a fellow who was telling a story. And he said, I was out on the golf course, and I was about to take a good swing at my ball, and all of a sudden I heard this: ribbit, 9-iron. And he looked around to see who was there, and there was nobody there. And he was about to start again, and it said again, ribbit, 9-iron. He looked down, and there was a frog there. And he said to the frog, did you say that? The frog said, ribbit, 9-iron. He said, I'll try this. I'm just going to pander to this frog. I don't think it's true. He took his 9-iron, took a swing, and he hit the ball so straight, so good, and it landed within 10 inches of the cup. Well, he was ecstatic. So he looked at the frog and said, are you a lucky frog? And the frog said, ribbit, lucky frog. So he picked the frog up and he went to the next hole. And he said to the frog, by this time he was getting a little used to him, he said, what should I use? And the frog said, ribbit, 3 wood. So he took the 3 wood, he hit it, and he made a hole in one. So he had the best round of golf ever. Well, he was very pleased. After the game, he said to the frog, well, what's next? And the frog said, ribbit, Las Vegas. So they went to Las Vegas, and they got into the casino, and he had the frog kind of a little of this, and he says, okay, what should I do? He said, ribbit, 3,000 on black 6 in a roulette table. That was a lot of money. But he said, the frog's been good so far. So he put down the 3,000, and lo and behold, he won just tons of money. Well, he decided to get a really nice room. He had all this money in the hotel, and he took his money up there and took the frog up there. And he said to the frog, this has been the most wonderful experience of my life. Is there any way I can thank you? Is there anything I can do for you? And the frog said, ribbit, kiss me. So he kissed the frog. He'd been so good to him. And the frog turned into this most gorgeous 16-year-old girl. Then he looked up and said, and that, Your Honor, is how she got in my room. That's a kind of a long story, but it illustrates a very good point. We will go to any lengths to show that we're not to blame for anything. And this idea of not being to blame goes way back. It's not something that's just new here. If we were to think back in the time of Jesus and the story about Joseph and Mary going to Bethlehem to be taxed, you know that story that comes out of the Bible? And Joseph's got Mary on the donkey, and they come up in front of the inn, and Joseph goes to the front door, and he knocks on the door, and he says to the innkeeper, I want a room. And the innkeeper said, are you crazy? There's all these people being taxed here? He said, there's no rooms. There's no room in the inn whatsoever. And he says, but my wife is pregnant. And the innkeeper said, that's not my fault. Joseph said, not my fault either. This idea of not getting the blame is critical to us. We just really have to run away from, we can't take responsibility for what happens. And yet, without taking that responsibility, we'll never do it. Now, unfortunately, I didn't know this when I was raising my kids. And everyone who knows me knows that I have 2 boys, Johnny and Kenny. But really, I have to confess to you, I have 3. There was Johnny, Kenny, and not me. Now, I never saw not me at the table or any place. I never saw him at all. But he was there. Because everything that got messed up in the house, I would say to Johnny and Kenny, who did this? They say, in the chorus, not me. So I knew it was him. We are literally always trying to get away from that. So let's take a look and see what we can do. We're going to talk about the energy that comes to us, good energy. Nothing but good and whole energy comes into you. Nothing but good energy comes to you. And then you take that energy and you expend it in all of your activities. It comes in, and then it goes out in your speech, in your actions, in all the things that you use energy for. It's coming into you and going out. Now, unfortunately, it gets processed in there. Good, whole God energy is the only thing that comes into you. But if you take anything that's fearful, it changes. It literally splits that energy. Fear of any sort splits the energy in half. And we have 2 halves. And then that creates, because of the split, that creates a doubt in us. Now, what we call good and bad are nothing more than a good side and the bad side of a piece of energy. God calls it incomplete. There's nothing bad, but there is incomplete. There is not balance. There is half instead of whole. Now, if you take the word good and you split it, what really happens is this. We literally go odd. We just split our energies, and things don't work when you're operating on split energy. So we can bring that energy back together, and if you really want to bring it back together fully, when you bring good into its smallest thing, we're back to God. Now, we need to take a little closer look at this good energy. It comes into us whole, just like you see there in the slide. It's coming in, and when it gets there, it is split by the fear into 2 parts. then we do this. We project one part outside of ourselves. And that part draws a similar thing into our experience. In other words, because we've said that's not our energy, we've pushed it out of us, and then it is out there in the experience world, and it draws something like it. Not the opposite, it draws something exactly like it. Now, if we want to change that, we have to do something. This is the healing process. First, we must bring the bad energy, the split piece, in. That's taking full and complete responsibility for every event, no matter who's doing what. I'm responsible. If someone is not giving you what you want, maybe you didn't explain it right, but there's something in you. You've drawn everything. So the first step is to say, okay, somehow, whether I know it or not, consciously or subconsciously, I create that. When you do that, then you bring the energy back in you, still split. But at least you've got both sides in it, and you're not creating another situation. Then you can, through a process we're going to describe, bring that energy back to whole again, right within yourself. When you have good energy, and it's split, the first thing that happens and prevents you from bringing it in and going through that process is this: blame. Blame says, it's out there, you're wrong, you did it, it's not my responsibility. And then that blocks you from pulling it in, and therefore creates the same thing over and over and over. Now let's take a look at guilt. It does something similar. Guilt is inside you, and it splits. It keeps the energy from coming back together. All guilt is useless. Well, it might prevent somebody from doing something wrong. Huh? Have you been paying any attention to the world? The people who are the most guilty keep doing it over and over and over again. Guilt has only one function, and that's to have someone else control you. And we do it with our kids. We use guilt to train our children not because we're bad, because we just don't know any better. And the religion uses guilt to control people. Companies use guilt to control people. Charities use guilt to raise money. So guilt has no function except for someone to control you from the outside. Love is the antidote that we talked about for this thing. Now notice I said that love is not an emotion. I want to say that again. Love is not a four-letter word, even though it has four letters in it. It is not an emotion. It is not something you feel. You can feel love, but love itself is not a feeling, and it's not an emotion. It is an energy. It's a certain type of energy. It is, we could call it the force or a force. It is a force. It's a very, very powerful force if directed rightly. Or it's a vibration. Love is a vibration at a very high frequency, where fear is also a vibration, but at a very low frequency. And our job is to get ourselves from those low frequency feelings to higher frequency feelings. Here are some symptoms of love: joy, peace, abundance, oneness. When you're experiencing those kinds of things, then you have the symptoms of actually loving. And this doesn't have anything to do with your heart fluttering or some wonderful person in your life. That's not love, that's infatuation. You can love a person, you can give love to a person, but you cannot get any from them. Love comes from within you. It's the only place it comes from. You can get a substitute, a reflection from someone else, but that's all. You can love someone dearly. In fact, have you ever noticed this about the American dating ritual? Some of you can remember back then. Some of you may be still in that process. Boy meets girl, and there's sort of a suspicion. We don't know whether this is going to be the right kind of person for us. And so maybe we go out on a date with them. And each one is being on their best behavior. They're trying to, and they're even finding out what the other person likes so they can behave like that. Each of them is doing it with the other. And they come together and they feel pretty good, so they have another date. After the third or fourth date, all of a sudden they have fallen in love. And I mean fallen in love. What happens to your sensibilities when you're in love? What sensibilities? They're gone. You are in this absolute state of euphoria. It's a wonderful feeling. And by the way, it's how you're supposed to feel all the time. But now you have an object to express your love. You are not feeling any love from that other person. You are feeling the love coming out of you towards the other person. And so this is really a good thing. And so the more you're with this person, and the more they find out what you want, and the more they work hard to be like what you want, and the more you work hard to be like what they want, and then we come to the day of getting married. And the honeymoon, it's all great. And then the, quote, honeymoon is over. And you notice this guy doesn't hang up his toothbrush. And all these little things, everybody starts to relax and become themselves. And after a year or two, we're saying, what happened to that wonderful person that I met? Who's this person that's with me now? Well, that's the real one that's with you now. The other one was one that you both made up. Now, sometimes, in 10% of the cases, it actually works out because the two people were at least enough like what they were pretending to be, or they began to grow like what they were pretending to be. And it works out, there's a good relationship. 56% of the time, marriages wind up in divorce. Another 4% of the time, they wind up in separation. That's only 60% left. And of the marriages, you know, those 40 that are left, how many of them are just wonderful, blissful things? Come on, we're honest up here. How many of them are? There are some. There are some really great ones. The estimate is about 10% are really, truly functional. And functional marriage doesn't mean you never argue or you never have a disagreement. It means that you have a way to come through the disagreements and have a way to see each other's point of view. That's what a functional relationship of any sort is. And there are many marriages that develop in 40, 50, 60 years into this great, wonderful relationship. But more often than not, it doesn't. The reason that it doesn't is because we are letting ourselves sabotage what we want. And we are drawing ourselves, listen up, folks, we are drawing ourselves to people who are like what we believe about them. I'll use women, and the same thing is true as men. Women say they don't like a certain kind of man. Their father was an alcoholic, and they hate alcoholics. Why do they keep marrying them? Again and again. They're literally drawn because it's part of they haven't solved some of that relationship. They've missed that relationship with their father, so they're trying to make it up, and they have to get another person just like that. This is subconscious, not conscious. Nobody would do this to themselves consciously. So the reason we're having troubles in relationship is because we haven't cleaned our own clock. If we were the kind of person we wanted, they would be in our lives. Here's the pathway to love. First and foremost is forgiveness. Now, everybody, I'd like you to understand that forgiveness has nothing to do with letting anybody off the hook. You don't have the power to do that. It is saying, I accept what happened, I accept the person the way they are, and I can tell them to go to hell too, even though I accept them. We want to accept every single thing about everyone, but that doesn't mean you have to live with them. That doesn't mean you have to take anything from them. That doesn't mean anything like that. It simply means that you don't try to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You don't try to make a neat person out of a slob. It doesn't work. My mother tried, and my wife was smart enough not to try, and I became much neater. What?
I said, right.
Right. That's how it works. It was in me. I became neater because I decided it was a lot easier to spend less time looking for stuff if I would put it away in the first place. But that was a change that I had to get through with that childhood stuff of being made to be neat. So I was defiant about being sloppy. Well, okay, that's fine. Nothing wrong with me. But I decided not to live that way. And anyone can decide who decides that. Acceptance. There's nothing more important in your life for you to do. In fact, this is literally an element of love, is to accept things the way they are. When it's happened, it's happened. Don't cry about spilled milk. Don't be upset about what's happened. Simply pull back and decide, I don't like this. Or as we said earlier, isn't that interesting? I spilled my milk. Isn't that interesting? I don't have to clean it up, but I can. But I'm not forced to. I can make a choice as to whether they want to clean it up or not, or let it sit there forever. Compassion is another requisite of love. Now, compassion is totally different than sympathy. I have absolutely, positively no sympathy for anybody. I don't care. None. I have compassion for everyone, and will continue to develop the compassion that I can in myself. I would ask you to do the same. Compassion is this. You see somebody who's hurting, and you say, I understand what it's like to hurt, because I've hurt. Okay? But I'm not going to go down there and wallow with them in their hurt. I'm not going to go down there and sympathize with them. If they're ready, I'll help them. And if not, I'll bless them. But I am not here. I had to turn in my license that said Captain of the World. I had to turn it in. I found out I wasn't Captain of the World. I have a hard time being Sergeant of me. That's the only person that I have to be in charge of, not anybody else. So I accept people the way they are. If they are willing to accept what I can give, I give it. I don't feel under any obligation to give them anything, but I give it because I like to do it. It makes me feel good. I'm really doing it for me. And the last thing and most important thing is gratitude, not the last, next to last. Gratitude is a way to change your energy. I want to tell you about a lady that came to we did a whole series of classes, and she came every week, and she asked the most negative, put-down kind of questions you can imagine. Every week. That won't work, this isn't right, oh yeah, what about this? On and on and on. When the class was over, I happened to see her literally in another church than where I taught that class, and she had a broken leg, and she was scowling. She was probably one of the most miserable people I've ever met. I mean, she really was hurting. But I knew there was no sense in me wallowing in that because I wasn't going to get any place with her. And she said to me, literally, I don't remember the words, but it was something like, you teachers, you tell all this good stuff, you say all this good stuff, but you don't really mean it. I'm in a terrible situation, got a broken leg, I can't work, I've lost my job, and I need $2,000. If you were what you claim to be, you'd lend me $2,000. If I was not a phony, I would lend her $2,000. I love a challenge. So I said to her, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I will come and see you next week. I'll give you a call before I'm coming, and we'll talk about this. So what I did was I wrote a check for $1,000. I went and got 100 3x5 file cards and 100 envelopes that they'd fit in and 100 stamps, and pre-addressed those stamps to myself, those envelopes to myself with a stamp on them, and each one had a card. I went over to her house and I said, here's $1,000. This is not a loan. I'm going to give it to you. And if and when you ever get to the place where you can pay it back, I want you to pay it forward. Never, ever, ever give me this money. But I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Every single day, I want you to write at least 7 things on one of these cards that you're grateful for. That's it. And I want you to mail them every day. I don't want you to stack them up. She did stack up a few, but for 100 cards, she mailed every one of them to me, and she put 7 things at first. And by the time we were at the end, she had both sides of the cards filled and had to use a second card. And I saw her. Her leg had healed up much more quickly. She'd gotten another job. She seemed totally happy. She said, this stuff really works. This is really wonderful. And she just was in a totally good place. And I want to tell you this, though. About a couple of years after that, I saw her again. And she was right back where she started from. I asked her a simple question. Are you still filling out your gratitude cards? And guess what she said? No. So when we give you things to do, like the affirmations and gratitude exercises that you're going to get as we go along, they're there because they work. They're there because they will affect your life and make it better. But you need to continue to do them in order to keep the condition of your mind the way you need it to have it produce what you want. The last one is trust. Josh said, if you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could move a mountain. The mustard seed is very small, so it doesn't take very much faith. Most of us don't. And the better word for faith than faith, the word in the Bible that's translated as faith has three meanings. One is belief, one is faith, and one is trust. Trust is the highest. When you trust the universe, when you trust God, when you trust what you're in, absolutely, that it's going to work. That's our last affirmation is things always work out for me. When you have that total trust, things work for you in an unbelievable way. So all of this, though, is developed because we've developed the opposite. This is something we're going to have to develop if we want to. So I want to take a look at love and fear. By the way, you were given a set of glasses when you came in. Did everybody get your colored glasses? I want you to put your blue glasses on. I want everybody to have them on. I'm going to have you look up at the screen, and you may see two things, but I want you to tell me what you see is most dominant on the screen. Somebody read this to me. What does it say? Looking for love in all the wrong places. I want you to change glasses. I want you to put your red glasses on. Everybody got your red glasses on? I'm going to show you the same slide and then tell me what you see now. Love in the circle around. What do you see in the middle? Nothing. Okay, now take your switch glasses so you can see the same slide, folks. Take your other glasses, switch back and forth between the blue and the red. Same slide. One way you see it, one way you don't. I know. Did you hear what she said? If you look carefully, you see the love going. You can't block the love out, but you can block. Try to do that with the blue glasses. It blocks out that looking for love in all the wrong places. You cannot completely, no matter how bad your point of view is, can you possibly knock out love? You can reduce it to where you can hardly feel it or hardly, in this case, see it at all. But fear comes when you put on your fear glasses, when you start to think fearful thoughts. It is literally where we are. If you could understand that whenever you're upset or angry or depressed or anything else, when your life is not going the way you want it to, and everything seems to be out there, you are looking through your blue glasses. You're looking through your fear glasses. Change them off immediately and start to think about what you want and not what's out there. You see, fear is what splits that good energy. So the healing process is this. We put in trust and love, and when we bring that together, surrounded by trust and love, they come together. Trust and love are what heals that energy in you and changes it to the way it originally was when you got it from God. I'm going to ask you to look at your life and the things that you're experiencing in a slightly different way. Most of us see ourselves as moving through time. You know, we're right here in the present moment. We used to be back there in the past, and we're moving towards the future. Isn't that the way most of us see our lives? Well, I want you to think, I'm stopped. I'm not moving at all. But time is. Time is moving through me. There we are, and instead of us moving through time, time is moving through us. We're just stopped watching time go by, coming through us. Just for a moment, just get that idea. I know it's different than the way we actually think. But we're looking at the world as if it's going by us, as a movie. Okay? While time is going through us, we have a state of mind that's on a different axis. It's perpendicular to time. And we can be in the state of love or joy at any time, no matter what's happening in the timeline, in the experience line, we can be in that state, or we can be in anger or depression. So if you have locked your belief system on that what's important is what's happening out there in time, then time has control over whether your state of mind is high or low. I would ask you to give up the idea that anything out there can affect you at all. And go to the idea that I can choose, no matter what the circumstance is, no matter how bad it looks, I can choose to move my state of mind at any time to the higher state. Now, if we're hooked to the outside, when something good happens, of course, our state of mind goes up, doesn't it? Because we're reacting to what's good. And when something bad happens, it drops. So we're allowing the movie out there, we're allowing the time-space experience to control our state of mind. One of the major objects of this course is to get you to be able to control your own state of mind regardless of what's happening out there. And when you learn that to any extent, you're going to be amazed at how you can actually change what's out there in a timeline. But if your purpose is to change the timeline first, you're working backwards and it won't work. You're working backwards and it won't work. Thinking can be high thinking, love-based, which is acceptance, compassion, abundance, forgiveness, and peace. Those are all high states of thought. Low states of thought are fear-based. They're anger, hate, lack, condemnation, and my favorite, gossip. Those are all low states of thought that bring your consciousness down. And there's a word for that. I learned it from a fellow by the name of Cavett Robert a long time ago, although I heard Zig Ziglar use it as well. It's called stinking thinking. And that's what we want to get rid of, is the stinking thinking. Okay, if I were to say to you, I have a glass here, and this is a glass of poison. And if you drink the whole glass, you'll get really, really sick. You'll be sick for 3 or 4 days, and then even after you're a little bit better, it'll take you a month to recover from this. But it tastes good. I mean, it tastes better than anything you've ever had. But you're really going to get sick if you drink this whole glass of poison. How many of you would like to drink the glass of poison? Anybody? No hands. Okay. Let's say that I said to you, well, you could drink half a glass of poison. Now, this will make you sick for most of the day, but instead of taking a month to recover, it'll only take you about a week to recover fully, and you'll get over it, but it really tastes good now. How many would drink just half a glass? No luck. Okay, what if I said you could have just a sip and it really tastes good? I mean, just a sip. And the sip will make you slightly nauseous, but you're going to recover in just an hour or so you're really not going to be hurt bad. And as long as you don't do it often, it will have no ill effect whatsoever. Just a sip of this poison. How many would take just a sip? It's the first time I've ever had anybody say they would take a sip, but good, I'm glad you said that. You'll see what we're taking is more than a sip. Most people in the majority of this audience wouldn't take a sip of poison that they knew was poison for any reason whatsoever. Not a glass, not a half a glass, not a sip. And the problem is this. Which one of these poisons are you drinking now? Take your pick. What kind of poison would you like? All of those things are poisoning your mind, your thoughts, and your experience. Let's take my favorite. We've got a little film clip, and I think our sound is turned on. I'm going to show you this because I think it'll give you a good idea. These are 2 ladies we had filmed this with. It was kind of fun.
What are you doing? I just walked from the other building. It is absolutely gorgeous outside. I'm having a wonderful day.
I'm glad you're having such a great day. I'm just so upset because I just saw Casey come out the office with the office manager and the supervisor. I think she's off the wagon. You know she was going to AA, but she doesn't go anymore, I don't think. You know, I see her going back and forth between the bathroom every day, back and forth. And one day I saw her, she was using mouthwash. That's an obvious cover-up. Well, anyway, she does work late, too. I wonder what she's doing. One day I think I'm just going to double back and catch her in the act. Just watch and see. She'll probably be taking a sip or something. You know, they gave her a raise. The nerve of them giving her a raise, that alcoholic. It's like rewarding her for being an alcoholic. Anyway, I heard her daughter was a loner. Can you imagine? I'd be embarrassed too if my mother was an alcoholic. And she never ever goes out with us after work. I wonder why. Probably because she'll probably end up drinking too much and driving. Speaking of driving, I wonder if she has a DUI. That's easy to check, you know. I can go right online and check that out. That's what I think I'll do right after break. I'll go over and check that out. Why are you so quiet? Are you having a bad day or something? Are you down?
Oh, she is now. Those are the 2 actresses we had do this. Bambi and Martha, And let's see how Bambi handles it this time. Same place, but she's going to handle it a little differently.
Hi. I just walked over from the other building. It's absolutely gorgeous outside. I am having a wonderful day.
I'm glad you're having such a great day. I just saw Casey come out the office with the office manager and the supervisor. It's obvious she's off the supervisor and the office manager.
Excuse me, you got me confused with somebody that gives a damn?
The nerve of her.
Ouch. Somebody said ouch. Okay. Now, one more time. We'll try it again. Another way to handle the same situation. Bambi does a little bit better job.
Hi, I just walked over from the other building. It is absolutely gorgeous outside. I am having a wonderful day.
I'm glad you're having such a great day. I just saw Casey come out the office with the office manager and the supervisor, and I'm just so upset. It's obvious she...
Brenda, I have to interrupt you here. It hurts you to tell this story, and it hurts me to hear it. Now, you know Shelley's getting married, and she is such a sweet person, and Sam's such a great guy.
Yeah, I like Sam.
Right. Have you thought about the color scheme for the wedding shower?
No, I haven't given it a thought.
Well, that's something we could work on.
And that was a little nicer, wasn't it? But you can change anybody who's gossiping to you. And of course, I know there's no one in here that ever gossips. Let me tell you about that. But if you can catch yourself gossiping, or if you can interrupt it, and you can use I'll tell you what, if the only way you could do it is you got me confused with somebody who gives a damn, do that. That's better than nothing. And then maybe learn how to have a little more finesse and simply say to a person, look, I really don't want to hear this negative thinking, but I'd like to talk to you about something else, and just be with them. You've done a double job. First, you've prevented yourself from drinking the poison, because you saw in the first clip, she was drinking that poison by just listening. Both were being poisoned. And in the second clip, why she stopped that, but left the other one ready to find somebody else to gossip to, and they will find someone else. And in the third one, she transmutes that, and that's the way we can do. It's up to you, but my suggestion is don't participate and don't listen to it. Now, in the next to the last lesson in the class that I'm teaching, we're going to go into depth about the art of pivoting. Now, how many of you, in the first class and the second class, I've talked to you about reading two books, Asking is Given and The Power of the Emotions. How many have gotten to The Power of the Emotions? Can I see an honest show of hands? One? Okay. I'd like for you to really get to that, because it's going to help you a whole lot. You need to read the first book just to get the general idea, and the second one, particularly the second half of the second one, gives you the method of turning around negativity in your thought right on the spot. I'll give you a little clue to it. Let's say you got fired. This is the first thought that comes to you. This is an event outside controlling you. And these are the negative, this is the poison thoughts. How will I pay my bills? That makes you feel bad. When you think those thoughts, you're going to feel bad. After all I did for that company, more poison. I was doing my job before that SOB was potty trained. You're criticizing, poison to you. They'll be sorry when they realize how important I was to that company. A little pity party, poison to you. Now, instead of trying to think, oh, everything is wonderful and I'm going to move to this great new place at once, because you can't. It's very hard. When you're stuck in that negative thinking, it's very hard to shift. But instead of trying to shift all the way, and as Abraham points out in The Power of the Emotions, you turn from upstream thoughts going against the current to downstream thoughts going with the current, even if it's not very far. So maybe we should start to think these kind of things. Well, I did get 5 weeks of vacation. Now, that's not a totally positive thought, but it's a more positive thought. You will feel better thinking that than one of the other thoughts. Or maybe I'll take a vacation now. That feels better. Or I did get 4 weeks of severance pay. Those are all thoughts that will make you feel better than the ones that you saw previously. And, well, I was thinking about getting a better job anyway. If that was your view, you'd have a better job in no time. But as long as you stick to that first list, it'll take you a long time to get the new job, and you'll be miserable all the way through. You see, All the movies like The Secret, I think many of you have seen that movies, or the books that tell you you can use your intention to get what you want are true. Half true. They give you one half of the formula. In order to really create in your life, there's something else you have to do. What they're giving you is a seed, and if you plant that seed in good soil, it will grow. There's nothing wrong with what they said. But if you have poisoned soil, the seeds won't grow. If you don't water the seeds, they won't grow. If you don't pull the weeds from choking them out, they won't grow. Your job is to keep this soil clean, to keep your mind free of all types of negative thinking and the feelings they bring on. And that's the hard work. That's the part of this that's hard. I am not going to say it's easy. It's very simple, but it's not easy because you are literally changing a habit. If you've ever been addicted to something, you know how hard it is to change an addiction. We are addicted as a society to negative thinking. Even those people who call themselves positive. I don't mean Pollyanna positive. I mean thinking what's right about something. Now, the good news is you do not have to think corrective thoughts about what's negative. In fact, if you do, that's counterproductive. You have to stop thinking, period. If you ignore all negative thoughts, just ignore them. Well, people say, well, what if something bad happens? Don't I have to do something about it? Well, you might, but if you're in a negative state of mind, you're going to do the wrong thing. I guarantee you can do the wrong thing. But if you get yourself in a positive state of mind about a negative thing, you will be shown the steps to take that will actually work and correct the outside problem. But the first thing before you do anything out there is to get this in here, feeling good, getting your whole vibration up into that love and acceptance area. Because when you're there, ideas come into your head about how to solve the exterior problem. And you can handle anything. You are not created as a weakling. You are not created as a sinner. You are not created as someone without power. You are created as a powerful force. You are part of the leading edge of God's experience. Everything you experience, God is right there, in, around, and through, and with you. And the nice thing about God is God does not interfere. Notice I didn't call him he. God does not interfere. But God comes when you call on it. And when you call from this state of mind, this is an event, isn't it interesting? I don't like this event. I would like to have a different event, and I don't know how to get it. So I'm just going to stay in a good place and be open, and I'll follow the guidance, and you'll get everything you need. Because you are children of God. I bless you all.